You are, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's city council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley,
Here.
Councilor Selly,
Here.
Councilor Powers,
Here.
Councilor Scamperly,
Here.
Councilor Stevenson, Councilor Tebow,
Here.
Councilor Trim, quorum present.
We do not have any presentations tonight. We have one public hearing. It is regarding the 2026 preliminary budget, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raised hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
The first individual is registered as Wendy Hamilton, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Good evening. I would like to address two items in the budget. First, I recognize that the budget is based on policy directions set by the council, and that Mr. Cronus has set out the RISE principles to also govern the budget. And the first initial of RISE is responsible governance and finance, which also means tight expenditure controls. So I would like to address the pool line, which has $13,000 for salary and overtime, which was supposed to have been eliminated because the pool would be closed. But I understand this is now for some sort of oversight or supervision of the intended splash pad. The splash pad is, I know, probably a done deal. You've already somewhat approved that, but that splash pad is going to incur capital costs year after year for maintenance. And at some point, probably replacement of the various, water features. But we are going into debt for the pool renovations, which are necessary, but it also means debt for the overage in the budget for the splash pads. So I would like you to reconsider that. It does, I realize that the pool will be closed next year, but I think taxpayers who want to have a pool available to them should maybe lobby the school district to be able to use a taxpayer-funded resource at the pool at OFA. I think there's opportunity to save some money there by not putting in the splash pad, and something you should consider. Probably a concession stand would have made more economic sense. Lastly, I want to talk about the $5,000 in the library line. I know last year that was a gesture of goodwill to essentially build a bridge with the library based on what has happened in the previous years. However, I question whether the library actually, in fact, needs that money. The referendum increased their distribution to $474,000, which was about a 25% increase for them. Again, taxpayer dollars. The Friends of the library, who are the fundraising arm for the library, have done an excellent job. Their last book sale netted $1,100, and that was just their fall book sale. In their bank accounts, in their coffers, available to the library, is a close to $49,000. So I question whether we, City Council and the City of Ogdensburg, needs to give it to them this year. maybe next year, but we have an underserved population. It's called teenagers. And maybe that $5,000 would be better spent in the recreation budget, providing some entertainment for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
So I declare this public hearing closed. That brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Al Di Prospero. I live at 327 Franklin Street. There was talk about remote work last session and snowboarding. I personally do not think snowboarding is a great idea. I don't like, it seems kind of, how are you going to represent a district if you're not going to be in it for months on end? It doesn't seem to make too much sense to me. Just all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raised hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 5 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
That brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence this evening?
We do not.
So that brings us to our consent agenda. That the claims as enumerated in general fund warrant 21-2025 in the amount of $585,863.49. And library warrant number 21-2025 in the amount of $0. And capital fund warrant number 21-2025 in the amount of $39,103.39. And community development fund warrant number 21-2025 in the amount of $0. And community renewal fund warrant number 21-2025 in the amount of $0 as audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly.
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson. Yes. Counselor Tebow,
Yes.
Counselor Trim. Yes. Approved.
Sorry. We don't have any items for council action tonight, so it brings us to old business. We'll begin with the 2026 preliminary budget. As I spoke to at workshop number 2, it would be my goal tonight that if council is going to consider any revisions to the preliminary 2025-26 budget that was accepted at our last meeting, that we let management know what those changes are tonight, so that in 2 weeks, when we adopt the final budget, we can have a clean resolution to adopt a preliminary budget as revised that evening. Is that still the way that council would like to go?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We had mentioned during workshop number 2 about consideration of reducing the proposed property tax levy. I had suggested considering continuing year 2 of the 5-year plan set out last year to reduce the levy by approximately $117,000 a year for each for 5 years. Personally, I'd like to try to stay on that course. Interested to hear comments from my fellow councilors.
Well, I'd like to stay on that course as well. I saw your changes and the email that you suggested, and I support all of the decreases that you put in there, Mayor. And I just, the only one that really stuck out to me was the appropriated fund balance increasing by 50,000. Storm suggested moving it to 25. So I thought that would be a good discussion item. Everything else that you had suggested, the line items, I see about 6 or 7 of them here. I fully support that. So.
Thank you.
So my concerns with
My concerns with some of the things we talked about, like increasing sales tax, I don't think we can count on that. I don't think we can inject money that I feel is going to be there the way the economy's going. Like I previously said, I can live with option 2 fairly easily, but when we start getting into spending money we don't have and adding things and taking things away where we seem to be inventing funds or inventing savings, I just feel strongly that I have trouble supporting some of that stuff. We'd have to look at each individual one to see where I stand.
Thank you.
I had suggested 2 additional reductions. One, that we remove $7,000 from the celebrations line, AA 7550498. Secondly, I had recommended reducing the stipends to $22,500 total. That would be 3 stipends, each at $7,500. Those were the 2 recommendations I had brought forward.
So
Okay, go ahead.
the celebrations line is the one I disagree with, Honey Jen, respectfully.
Sure.
Just because I think the overtime that the staff puts in, and that accounts for that 7,000, I think. And all the celebrations that happen, I think we need it. I think we need the people working. And that's basically what a budget is, right? I mean, a municipality or a school budget, we're paying for service. And I don't want to see that service decreased. I think we need it. And I think if we try and eliminate, I know it's only a small number, but it's going to result, I think, in just picking it up somewhere else. But I appreciate the other ones too, that you suggested with the stipends. People will agree to it.
Am I correct that the 7,000 recommended budget for celebrations was an accounting shift?
That is correct. Yeah, it would be overtime dollars from different departments that were shifted into that $7,000. We did that in this year's budget, the 2025 budget. So there were technically some reductions this year to shift those dollars over.
If we eliminate that $7,000 for celebration, we're virtually guaranteeing that the overtime budgets are going to be over budget, because that time we spend on Seaway Festival, et cetera, those have been the same for years. I don't see us cutting those services back.
What you'd be hoping for is some reduction in overtime somewhere else that was planned and didn't happen, like a winter that isn't as bad as we would have predicted or something along those lines.
Perhaps maybe just a renaming of that line. It just sounds celebrations when we're in such budget constraints. It sounds,
Celebratory.
yeah, celebratory. Thank you, Counselor. Celebratory, and it gives a better idea of if it were labeled such as overtime for celebration, something, or overtime for city activities, something that really lets the citizens know if they do look at the budget that it's not just to have fun, that it is something that is necessary. I could suggest that.
We can change the wording at council's discretion. Just need to tell us what you wanted to say.
Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. I just feel that it looks at, when you look at that and you're not here as part of the discussion, which any document you pick up, you should be able to understand what it is without having an explanation. And I think that it gives a bad connotation when we have these budget constraints. So I would leave that open to someone that would have more information as to what an appropriate naming would be, but something that would be more appropriate than celebrations.
How about celebration services? Something like that. I mean, it is a service, right?
It is a service, yes.
But that wouldn't make me know that it was really paying people who are working.
Well,
Right. That really changes the narrative though.
no, but looking at other lines in the budget, the 498 account is for other contractual expense. So that's how that should read, other contractual expense. Account code 7550 is under the department celebration,
That makes sense.
right? So I think, and so the purpose of the budget itself, if that's the other contractual expense, I think to highlight the department it was in, Bonnie may have put that title in this schedule. But it's intended to be other contracts.
Something along that, special
So
events.
I think the budget itself is fine with the nomenclature that's there.
Do we want to change the name of the department itself? That, because the department's name is Celebrations.
Celebration events, overtime, something like that.
Is it purely overtime? Is that the only thing that it's being used for?
Probably most of it.
I will throw in a monkey wrench here. The New York State Controller names Department 7550 Celebrations. I'm not so sure we have a choice to
Well, then I
change
think
that.
we have to leave it be and just make note of that when everybody brings it up. Okay, thank you.
And Council Stevens, would you again just detail your suggested change on stipends? I
Sure.
gotta keep my note from your email.
Certainly. Let me just go back to that. It's hard without email to open multiples and keep them open and not be able to refresh. So I look forward to our new system. So my thought process with that is that we had,
I'm sorry, can you just share the date of that email so that I can?
sure, let's
The
see.
26th of October?
Yeah, I think it was the 26th. Yes, 26th of October, Sunday, 26th of October. So I reviewed everything. I sat on it. I listened to all of the suggestions, and then I would like to reduce the stipends to $22,500. We had,
What is it now?
What was it?
it was, let me just pull it back up to the other side. I'm sorry.
62,000.
62,000, thank you. 62,000. So my thought process is those were temporary stipends that we had put in last year with some extra duties that were going to be needed by city staff. Some of those items are still needed, but I wanted to reduce them all to $7,500 each. There were 3 department heads that would be affected with that. The one that would be affected, that would have the reduction, now has another staff person that is carrying some of that load. And I think that in this light, that we could reduce those to $7,500 versus the entire amount that was previously recommended or approved.
Mayor, can I share some thoughts on that?
Would you please?
Sure. So I'm going to separate the two situations, and we'll talk first about the stipends received by the fire chief and the DPW director. The proposal in my recommended budget that passed through until the preliminary list at this point was to increase those stipends, and that was due to the incredibly strong performance of those 2 department heads. You see it not only in service increases and better services from both of those departments, but you also see it in your revenue. The significant increases in revenue to both the recreation lines and the code enforcement lines, and that is due 110% to the better, stronger leadership that these 2 department heads have. And so it is my contention to reward positive and much more professional leadership, and that's why I put it in there. Council has every right to be able to withhold it. I will note, however, that in my memo to council, when I talked about possible areas of reduction, I offered up a portion of the stipend that the city manager receives to make sure that these 2 department heads, with the stellar performance that they have that continue. So I'm not really sure why we would want to do that when, number one, rewarding performance is something that we can do on the management level and we should do. And number 2, if you don't believe that's the case, when I've already offered up an offset for that $5,000, I'm not really sure why we would ever want to do that. As far as the stipend that the city manager receives to do the entire planning department's work, the interim city manager, when that person did both jobs, received a stipend of $9,000 a month. That translates to $108,000 a year. The stipend that the city manager receives is significantly less than that. to do all of that work. The thought process behind that was that I would rather see those dollars go into proactive planning as opposed to going into one person. And we've shifted those dollars to make sure that we have a robust consulting planning group. Council is certainly within its rights to reduce any stipend that it feels that it needs to. However, the work still needs to get done. And I'm not sure how you can take $108,000 in work, reduce it to $42,000 in work, and then reduce it again to $7,500 in work and expect that the same amount of work going to get done. The expectation is one of two. One is the work doesn't need to get done because we won't compensate for it. Or the second is that work needs to shift over to the planning consultants. And that's certainly a way to do it, but you'll pay significantly more, in my calculations, about $70 more an hour to have the planning consultants do it than it work out of the city manager's office. So certainly the choice is council's. I would certainly recommend against the first part. The second part, I won't comment on anymore.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
So I will further comment on that, and I was trying to keep it just with the line items. But in my opinion, with the city manager's stipend, with the previous interim city manager, it was a different circumstance. And that person was the interim. They were not. They were always going back to the planning department, the planning office. They were not going to expect to stay as city manager. And that is why I believe former city council had done that. That was a separate situation. They also had codes under them at that time. So there has been a realignment of a certain number of things that have happened here. And that's why I suggested the recommendation to do that. We have 2 planning consultants. We have an economic developer now, and we also have code shifted over to the fire department. And that was the basis for my thought. But again, if I stand alone with that, I take that, and it is just my recommendation. And if I'm the only one that feels that way, I'm fine with that.
Thank you for the time to elaborate, Jen.
Thank you.
Among council, any support for Councilor Stevenson's such suggestion?
I don't support it, and I'd just like to recall a conversation I had in open session not too long ago where I discussed a planner. And I got a lot of comments and feedback from the public, especially some public who's been very critical, and they're glad I brought it up, number one. Number two, they were also very satisfied with your answer in that we don't need to retrain somebody because you just don't have the time. And so I'm glad, number one, that you're looking for a replacement, and number two, that we're being careful how we do it, and I'll support your stipend on that until we get another planner. And the same with the fire chief. If he's worth his weight, and I think he is, and for all the reasons you said, then let's keep it. So.
Sure, we will continue to look for a planner. I just will point out that the last person I interviewed for planner did not know what seeker was. And I didn't think it was worth hiring somebody and taking tax dollars to pay for their salary and benefits if they didn't even have a basic knowledge of planning. And that's the problem. If I had a great planner that walked in the door, I would be more than happy to hire them and pass the work on. It's certainly a bear to do, but I'm happy in the short term to do it if it means that we get the right person in the seat.
Okay, so any other questions or comments on that suggestion?
I guess my comment was, my particular reduction was for the city manager's position. I did not say to eliminate the $7,500 to the fire chief or to Parks, or sorry, to DPW. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or revisions by others on council before I offer my thoughts?
Yeah, real quick, if I can, Mayor, please. That kind of mirrors Storm's concern regarding the sales tax increase, recognizing that we just saw a receipt come in just recently. We had a brief update on some of the sales tax not too long ago. As much as we need it, I'd love to see it, but I'm not surely opposed to adding to the line, but maybe pull a little bit from there, maybe to take $5,000 off your recommendation, pull it out of contingency.
Thank you, Mike.
And that's just for the 20,
Right.
overall budget.
Here are my thoughts at this time, a little bit of modifications from what I suggested at the workshop. If we work from option 2, I would suggest maintaining contingency at $168,663. So I have to come up with $50,000 to cover that. And my suggestion would be to reduce heat, light, and power by $30,000 as an option 3, and increase appropriated fund balance from $250,000 to $270,000 as an option 4. So the transfer to reserve remains eliminated. The other options in option 2 are reduced as listed. Heat, light, and power down $30,000, increase appropriated fund balance by $20,000. That gets us to a reduction in the levy of $116,808.
Can live with that.
Yeah.
Any objection to having management prepare a resolution to that effect?
No, I support it.
Okay,
Mayor, before you go on, can we just, I just want to make sure we have it down. So I got Angela as my backup. I just want to make sure. So we'll reduce the heat, light, and power by $30,000, increase the appropriated fund balance number by $20,000, and then reduce the transfer to reserve by $50,000, reduce the engineering consultant line by $5,000, the equipment maintenance line by $5,000, printing and advertising by $808. Office expenses in 3620, which is codes, by $1,000, and reduce the planning consultant line by $5,000. Is that correct?
that is correct.
What was the contingency again?
The recommended budget, which is in the preliminary budget, is
You
$168,663.
recommended something other than 118,
Yeah, I recommended keeping it at 168.
160, oh, keep it at 160.
Appreciate the
Okay, so
clarification.
we're supportive of that, and we can look for that resolution at our next meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
So do we have to vote on that amendment?
No,
Okay.
no, what'll happen is, if I'm correct, the resolution will come before council in 2 weeks. We'll have us a vote to adopt the 2026 city budget, preliminary budget as the city's budget as revised, and then the details of what we just accepted would be detailed in that resolution. It leaves the water fund budget intact, leaves the sewer fund budget intact.
You are correct, Mayor.
Okay?
So are we leaving the sales tax?
Leaving sales tax as is 2.8 million.
Mayor, qualifying question, is council comfortable with us allocating the $30,000 reduction in heat, light, and power amongst the several budget lines that are in the budget?
I'd like to have the detail in the resolution.
Of course. But are you okay with management taking those, we'll get to the number of 30,000, but we'll allocate it as we see fit and
Yes,
share it ahead of time?
yeah, I think that's fair, maybe share it ahead of time just as a safety net, so those of us like to get in the weeds can take a look at the, expenditures today through, actually now through September, I think, with the recent financial reports we got, right? So, we can have an idea that the accounts you're suggesting be revised are appropriate. But certainly trusting they will be.
Oh, no, yeah, and we'll provide the latest data too.
And we can adjust that if we need to.
That night we could.
I think it's a good starting point.
All right, next under old business, I've asked the city manager to discuss with council, with the public, information about the swimming pool rehab statement and the project that will be forthcoming next year. Since there appear to be different thoughts as to what answers to certain questions were at our last meeting. So in an attempt to help clarify and give the public as best we can what we believe is correct information, I've asked the city manager to speak to that this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the first points of confusion was the use of gallons per day by the splash pad. And one resident quoted the seeker number, which was 86,000 gallons per day. When we put seeker together, we took a very, very worst case scenario, assuming 3 different splash pad sections, because you'd rather go high on this in seeker than be low and then have to do seeker again. As it turns out, council decided to do 2 splash pads. So the actual usage is going to be much closer to, say, 58,000 gallons per day as opposed to the 86,000. So there was some confusion there. And so we wanted to make sure that we clarified that. In addition to that, 58,000 gallons per day represents about 3% of the output for the wastewater treatment plant. So that's basically insignificant as that water flows through under normal circumstances. Now, we can certainly come up with some worst case scenarios where any drop of water would certainly not be warranted or appreciated by the wastewater system. But on a normal typical day, 58,000 gallons is not going to do anything to the wastewater treatment plant.
How many gallons of water do we produce a day?
2 million.
2 million a day. And we're looking at
Got that right, didn't I?
about that. Okay.
So again, 58,000 out of 2 million, and we have plenty of capacity.
Yeah.
That's not an issue there.
Yeah.
I know there were some questions about what happens when we have heavy storm events, and it's certainly a consideration, a good question to ask. But again, when we get a large rainwater or a runoff event, we're talking about millions upon millions of gallons of water. Again, 58,000 one way or the other isn't going to make or break anything. When we're in a rough spot with a quick storm that dumps a half an inch of water, any gallon additional is going to be problematic. But we can't plan for the worst case scenario in every event. If that were the case, the wastewater treatment plant would be 5 times as big as it is. And that's just not cost effective. So that 58,000 gallons of water is generally insignificant in the grand scheme of our capacity to be able to process 6 million gallons in the wastewater treatment plant or to produce water from the drinking water plant.
Yes, again, if it's raining, we're not using the splash pad. Theoretically, right? If it's pouring rain out, they're gonna have kids running down at the splash pad, so
It might be.
they might be, but they might not. Like, the chance of that being open if we got a 3-day rainstorm, it's pretty zero.
That is true, except you just have to keep in mind when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant, it's not just water in, water out in 30 seconds, right? It's got to go through the entire system. So it does take some time to get through. So, so I think it's a good concern to bring up. It's just a question of if we've got that much water in the system, another 58,000 gallons, as much as that sounds, but when you scale it back to 6 million, it just doesn't resonate, right? It's like a rounding error almost. There was a question, and a good question, about the cost per day. And I think there's a little bit of confusion on the way the question was either posed or thought through, because the city isn't going to pay for the fixed cost of that facility. We're not going to pay ourselves for what a gallon of water costs to produce. We pay for the marginal gallon, the next gallon produced, and we don't have a lot wrapped up into that, right? It's basically a little bit of electricity as the pumps run to get the water in from point A to point B from the river, and then some chlorine. So when you think about a gallon of water and a little bit of chlorine and a little bit of electricity to move it, again, is there a cost? Yes. It's a slight cost. Yes. It's not anything that's going to make or break any budget at that point, because we do not allocate our fixed cost to us, right? It allocates to the service, the people that we provide services for.
I brought that up in relation to what we're charging people. Like, there's folks that have been complaining, of course, about the home business fee, but all in all, when we pay our water fee, which I think our water and sewer, for the record, is comparable to the other municipalities around, maybe even less so. But I just know that people are going to look at it and say, look at all the water that's being wasted and how much am I paying for this, you know? And so when I brought that particular question up, that was why I was wondering what the cost was. I think that's fair for the user, you know?
Certainly.
So
I think it's a legitimate question. You know, it's an opportunity cost, right? What does it cost to have a little bit higher quality of life for our residents and for our children? So that's the balancing act of it. Those are the big decisions that you folks make. Any other questions on that? All right. The other question that came up was about utilizing a closed system where we recycle the water, much as a pool would do, right? You have so much water in the pool, goes through your filters and then comes back out, gets chlorinated and all that. And so we were having the quote worked up anyway, so it was a good question. The tally comes in at, to have that recirculating system, an additional $284,433. So I think what I said in my update was a little bit lower than that, but that's the number that came out. So if council wants to move in that direction, we certainly can. I would just need council to identify where it would like to source the $284,433. So it's an option, certainly.
It clearly doesn't cost that much to put the 58,000 gallons through the treatment plant.
I think it's safe to say that, yeah.
So why would we do that? I'm just curious.
I would not recommend it, but if folks, you know, if council felt that that was a good use of taxpayer dollars, we would do it.
So when I asked that, I think it's a legitimate question again, in terms of if you compare what it costs, because it kind of goes with the first part, right? What does it cost the city to put that 3% through the system, if you looked at it like that? And then what would it cost to do the recirculation? I think
What's the other number then to put it through the first option, 58,000?
We didn't work through it because we thought it was insignificant.
Okay.
I mean, these were a lot of the questions that were brought up by constituents. Penny Shell called. I think she had some great points. Greg McNamara had some good points. And the things that I thought were worth considering. And I asked all these questions. And
I'm not saying
that's a job.
just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's a dumb question.
Right. And I thought they were legit, the questions that were brought up. And it's nice to know the answers to these things. And I appreciate Fonda and staff for answering these questions.
But if we don't have that other number on what it costs to do 15,000 gallons, then we really don't know what the and whether it's comparable, whether
Right.
we really don't know the answer to.
I mean, that's a one-time expense.
But it isn't.
It
Because now you got to maintain those filters.
Right.
You got to clean them. You got to maintain them. Well, we've already got the system where it's running into the wastewater treatment plant at 58,000 gallons versus 6 million gallons. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what that pump's going to cost to repair and maintain.
Coming from the swimming code.
And I get
It's
that.
a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It's a one-time initially, and then it is a service, continues. And
It's going to break
in the
down.
long term, this might be the better option to make the water flow. But I think it was legitimate concern from the residents, and
Yep.
so why not bring it up and have it talked about?
That a legitimate question. And if I thought it was going to be close, we would have crunched the number on the cost of a gallon and the 58,000. But, you know, I think it's going to take it many, many years.
I was going to say,
To break
is that true over like the next decade?
I would imagine the ROI difference is multiple decades. But I mean, if council wishes us to crunch the number, we will crunch it. I just didn't see the value in doing it because of the insignificance of a gallon, you know, the incremental cost of a gallon of water. We can crunch it if you want to. We can, you know, it's all estimated, right? It's I didn't think that there was value in doing that, but you know, you have it in front of you, and if you want it, we'll get it for you.
One item that we had discussed at the presentation at the Dubisky Center was that the city of Kingston circulates their water from their splash pad through the pool filter system. But I think that for the location of the splash pad, And where the pool filtration system is, it would take a lot of retooling and the pumps would have to be bigger. So we would run into a similar cost issue with that, because I had looked into that also. But I just think that with the small amount of water that we are using there, even though it sounds like a lot of water, the cost ratio just isn't there to add more to the system than what we're already doing.
All right, and then the last question or point that came up was a fence around the splash pad. Our original design had a fence around the splash pad. The cost is about $30,000 if memory serves me. I think part of the confusion is that Watertown splash pad does not have a fence around it. And so we built that into our budget because of some comments we heard from council previous to, and we're trying to get clarification from New York State Department of Health as to what the regulations are. As with anything, when you have different people interpreting the same statute, sometimes you get different interpretations, and the gentleman that we're working with here in Ogdensburg is reading the statute differently than the person in Watertown. So we're designed for a fence, so the fence is there. We're certainly working with the regulators to determine, the detail. One of the things I think that comes up is there really isn't a height requirement on the fence. It just simply says fence, and that, I don't know if that makes the most sense in the world. So we're going to dig into it, and certainly we've heard council's concerns. We've budgeted for it. It's just, I think we were trying to make it as sightly as we could, because let's face it, chain link fences aren't the best looking in the world. So we'll work through it, and we'll figure that out. We heard council loud and clear on that.
It's definitely a stickler with myself, and I put that on there as well. I just am concerned about the safety of kids. I'm concerned about vandalism. I'm concerned about dogs in the area. I thought Penny Sherrill brought up some super points on that, and definitely worth throwing it out there. So I'm very much in support of a fence around the entire facility. So.
I echo Dan's concerns, but I don't think I've ever seen a splash pad with a fence around it.
I've not.
I've been to several cities with splash pads, and most of them are just in the middle of parks.
Well, I'm saying that included in the entire facility with the pool and the splash pad and everything. And
So you're saying, sir, like everything would be in one fence?
yeah.
I would be very cautious with that, because you've got children over here at a splash pad, and then you've got children over here that are in a pool that has depths to it. And I would be interested in knowing if that's a possibility to do that. That to me would be more concerning, that if I'm someone with a child or two children there, and I've got them at the splash pad, I look away for 2 seconds and now they're over at the pool, and I can't keep them separate from that.
I'd almost rather have a fence keeping
If
them
we're going
out.
to if we are going to fence it, I would rather have 2 separate fenced areas. I prefer not to have a fence on the splash pad, but if we're going to do it, I would want 2 separate fenced areas for that kind of security. I think we're just opening a different situation that could occur.
one of my suggestions was a connecting gate that we could open or close, probably a large one, but enabling parents or groups to go in and out.
If we enclose them both together, we won't be able to open the splash pad separate from the pool, because you'd have to have lifeguards on duty to cover the pool. So that's why we had it separated. So we can open it with just an attendant or nobody watching theoretically with the cameras. Someone sitting in a visiting center could watch the splash pad with the cameras, but if it's in with the pool, we can't open it without lifeguards, adequate lifeguards.
So the fence separating the two with the possibility of a gate that could open it up.
We did talk about that. We're waiting for an answer back. There's got to be a regulation. I don't know if the gate would have to self-lock.
Because to say if you've got a gate, then kids can open it, and even if they can't, someone can leave it open.
Well, no, I think we have some attendants or the lifeguards on duty, or the person who's in charge of them.
Basically be an attendant if you had a gate between the two entities.
Yes, but I think it would have to
You would have it.
self-lock like your house, if you have a above ground pool at your house, your gate has to self-lock behind it. So I think that it would have to be something like that.
And then, of course, that would have to be managed in some aspect.
I think if it's
During operating
self-locking,
hours.
you lock with, probably a padlock with, off hours, like we do the tennis court and stuff like that.
Right.
No.
I like the idea of the splash pad being available more hours without the supervision needed, so that we get the most use out of it possible.
Right, which would be the idea of locking the pool up people could still access the splash pad area, right? I just think it's a better option
I don't think we have to worry about
for
the
safety.
right, with the pool. Right, the pool's gonna be under construction.
Well, I'm saying when it's done and complete.
And I just think that the whole, the splash pads that I've seen, and I've seen them in Watertown, I've seen them, Chicago, I've seen them, Cincinnati, I've seen them all over. Because I've wanted a splash pad for the city for many years. It's something that I always love watching the kids run, and I can't say I haven't run through a few times myself, because I'm a kid at heart. But it's the idea of the open concept. It's the idea of being able to picnic there and enjoying the time. Like you go to the beach, it's like you go to the beach and now you have this enjoyable area versus feeling like you're closed, excluded. How big are we going to make this fence that people could picnic inside and enjoy a family day? That's why if we don't need the fence and it's not determined that it's a hazard, I would prefer not to do the fence.
So
Something I'll think about.
is there a preference on council right now and a direction to go in? Wow.
What was that, Shane?
A height, I don't think the statute, like you said, says a height. I think a 6-foot fence, my personal opinion, is way too much.
Yeah, for a splash pad.
Yeah. It would kind of look, and I think the way they designed it, it is large enough for the be green space around it, the way that they designed the fence for, so there would be areas for picnic and shade shelters and stuff like that.
Well, let's wait. We're doing research with the state in terms of what regulations might apply to the splash pad area. Let's wait and get those answers, and then we can talk further about this.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Fonda. All right, next under old business, I do have some comments I want to share that are personal in nature pertaining to the recent discussion on revisiting home business water and sewer fees. And just an alert, I've been sharing some thoughts in consultation with members of council and staff in an effort to develop this. So this is the, I think, third iteration that I completed in about 2 minutes before 6 today. So some of this is going to be new to all of you. Okay, I'll preface my statement with that. But I want to offer my thoughts on some recent comments pertaining to water and sewer user fees assessed to certain home businesses in the city. First, as to why the revenue is recorded in the respective funds, water and sewer. At City Council's May 21st meeting, I stated my research found a flat fee for home business water and sewer had been listed in the city's municipal code since 1975. I did not try to locate minutes back to that time to identify the points of discussion that led to that decision, but the fact that these fees were and continue to be codified under water tells me that they are associated with water and not a general business fee. I think comments by city government has caused confusion in the public about the intent of charging these user fees. These comments may be based on opinion and not a matter of any of them being correct or incorrect. But since they differ, it appears city government is not on the same page in its messaging to our citizens. I think we are talking about two separate issues here. One, should there be a business permit fee to be charged to businesses, not only home businesses, in the city? City staff suggests there are benefits to the city beyond permit fee revenue if such a fee is assessed. And if council is interested, we can invite staff to have a presentation about this. If a presentation is desired, I suggest we wait until at least January at the earliest to schedule this to allow staff time to complete the 2026 budget process, prepare the 2026 city tax warrant, complete other calendar year responsibilities. And that might be a tight timeline in any event. And then the second issue is answering the question as to whether or not a home business, as defined in the code, should be charged more than the residential water sewer rate user fee. I believe there is justification to continue to assess the user fee for water and sewer under the code until water meters are in place citywide. And I'll use an example I cited in prior discussions but stated in a different manner. Assume I live in a home in 2025, that's calendar year, that is metered for water and I live there by myself. My water use is typical for a homeowner. I wash the dishes, I do my laundry, I take my daily shower, I water the lawn and garden. Now, on January 1, 2026, I started a business in my home that provides services that require use of water. Perhaps it's a salon where I provide services to customers throughout the year. Perhaps it's a daycare where for 10 to 12 months a year, I provide care to 3 or 4 children, 4 to 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. I prepare their meals, I provide drinking water from the tap, possibly make baby formula. There's an increase in use of bathroom facilities. Common sense tells me that it is more than likely my water meter will reflect greater use of water in 2026 when I ran a business versus 2025 when I didn't. And I think that is possible, if not likely, why the rationale exists that user fees have been in place in the municipal code underwater for 50 years. So looking at this another way, I believe the definition in the code for commercial residential mixed structure recommended by management and adopted by council in 2024 infers that the user fees assessed apply to those structures which use water in their home business. However, perhaps consideration might be given to allow home businesses to apply to have water meters installed at their home at their expense. Initial estimates from staff indicate the cost to install such a water meter might range from $500 to $600. So I think, again, there are multiple issues here, certainly not going to resolve tonight, but those are some of my thoughts at this time. And I'd be curious to hear council's reaction to my comments.
Well, I'll start us off. I appreciate the fact that you're looking at it, Mike, and I'm gonna, I agree that there's a good possibility people use more water if they have something like a daycare or something like that. However, there's no factual data. There's no, if the city had water meters, this would not be an issue at all. You just simply pay your water meter bill. And so I've said this repeatedly, and I'm going to keep saying it, and unless we have a citywide meter system, I think it's unfair. I use a lot of water. I use a lot of water. I water my tomatoes all summer long, and my lawns, my whatever. And I wonder if somebody that has a hair salon or a daycare and maybe doesn't water their tomatoes and their lawns and things like that uses as much water as I do. And what about a family of 10? What about a family of 8? What about, without a water meter, there's no factual evidence whatsoever. And so I think if the city wanted to look at a home business fee, that could be something we can look at. I'm not opposed to it, but I still stand my ground on, I don't think we should have an extra water fee for a business when we have no factual evidence whatsoever that anybody's using more water. That's where, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Thank you.
Didn't the chief say that that's not really a water fee? I mean, that Chief Stahl, I think, clarified that a couple meetings ago.
I don't know if I actually misspoke or was misunderstood. So the original formula that is now used, the half and half, which we know was presented from someone that was paying double.
Right.
Well, every time I spoke with them, it was, we are now a residence and a business, so why wouldn't we pay half of the flat residential fee, which is unlimited use, and half of the minimum use commercial rate? And that's what pretty much got enacted. I can tell you, I will give you some factual information as of today. 38% of all commercial businesses that are not at-home businesses do not come anywhere near close to the minimum amount of water that they're allowed to use for a commercial rate. So I caution you to let someone that has a business not pay an extra fee, only pay the residential fee. What's stopping a garage who's only using 7,000 gallons a quarter versus the 27 that they can say, I don't think I have to pay the commercial rate, which is what we do. It's the commercial rate, they pay it all year long. They don't get a break. There's another residence that the owner lives in the building. They are considered a commercial business. They don't do the at-home. They pay a commercial rate, and they are under the minimum amount of water that they're allowed to use. I believe what was put in is very fair. One of the people that were affected is the one that suggested it. So I think you just need to keep that in mind. There's one business, like I said, there was a hair salon actually that has 2 apartments attached to it. And they don't meet the minimum commercial rate or usage of 27,000 gallons a quarter. So they're paying for 27,000 gallons and they're not using it. I would assume that a lot of these businesses that are under are probably using less because they don't have the tomato plants that Councilor Camp really has. So there has to be, to me, it is commerce at your building. So that's why you pay the commercial rate. Why are we making regular businesses pay extra?
Right, I brought that up for years.
So
For years, I mean, look at Nick's liquor store down there. You got a guy standing there all day.
well, I was talking to businesses one by one, the smaller ones that I thought would be way under. Fortunately, I met with Comptroller and she said, I can get you that information in 2 seconds. And it was just a spreadsheet sort, and 38.08% of commercial businesses are nowhere near the amount of water that they're paying for.
Right.
So.
Brought that up for years.
And if I may also, Councilor Scamperly, I would bring attention to multi-family buildings. When you look at a landlord that has a 4-unit building, they're paying 4 water and sewer rates, and they may only have 4 people that live in that building. So every time we look at making it equitable, we have to look across the board at every user. And I think that even when we have water meters, there's still going to be a minimum usage that has to be enacted. There's going to be equivalent dwelling units that have to be determined for each building. So each building isn't going to pay 1 water and sewer rate still, even if it's metered. It's going to go based on an EDU system. So we still need to consider that with whatever we decide, whatever direction we go today. Just putting a water meter in isn't going to say, all right, I only use 10 gallons, I'm only paying for 10 gallons. It's going to be a minimum usage. So someone, like for me, it sits at my office all day long and it's just me primarily, 2 tenants that live upstairs, one's gone 4 days a week. I'm not coming anywhere near the usage of that. So where does the equity come into that? And we have to look at our downtown and we have to look at commercial corridors and we have to look at the advantage and disadvantage that we give to work at home businesses versus businesses that actually have brick and mortar. There has to be a balance of that equity. And that's what I'm saying. I think that we should look at this more closely after the first of the year. I agree with the mayor on that. And I think we need to consider, is a business fee the best course of action, or is there a mix of business fee and water sewer rates that have to happen for certain businesses? But I think right now we've got a regulation that it's almost impossible for our staff to deal with. I think it's really hard for them to monitor this. I think we need to make it more clear cut and take it away from, I don't think I use a lot of water, so I don't think I should pay the business use. And I think a business fee may take care of that. So I would really like to see this working through with a presentation back from staff and working on this after the first of the year before we take any action.
Consequences would we have if we were to change that aspect through the comptroller's office, water and sewer? Would there be any, could there be, if we were to change, and not necessarily remove water and sewer, obviously, but to create a business fee to not monitor the use of water, but ultimately at the end of the day, as the chief put it, you're basically being charged a business fee. You know, you're not using a lot of the businesses aren't using the water, right? The amount that they're actually being billed for. And, with that being said, does it already exist, and would there be a hassle with that, with any potential state entity as far as, from your aspect of doing business from a budgetary standpoint, whatnot? That just kind of pops into my head, but to add to Jen's comments, I appreciate the chief and the mayor putting in this work and recognizing everything that we have going on. It may be something that we beat this down pretty good all year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got bigger things to worry about right now, and I'm not mitigating that in any way, shape, or form, but ultimately at the end of the day, let's get through the holidays and the budget session and get the new year 2026 up and running and get out in front of this as best we can, which I thought we already did. But, you know, when the mayor put out his suggestion, it makes a great deal of sense. And it's obviously something that needs to be looked at. Again.
Others on council? Let me follow up by saying that it's obvious from the points brought up during discussion that the issue is broader than as I presented it. And I don't know the last time that minimum rates were calculated or revised for commercial businesses. And, you know, listening to, you know, Chief Stoll's comments that up close to 40% of commercial businesses in the city are paying a minimum fee, which is greater than what they're using. But is that appropriate if, when we go to full metering, there's going to be a minimum expected of all? So those are issues that I don't know about others on council, but I would need to be educated on. And so having said all that, I do think it's something broadly that we need to look at in the next calendar year. So having initially suggested possibly January, I think I would let management come back to us with a suggested timeline by which they might offer an initial presentation about I'll say the generic issue of user fees, a focus on water and sewer maybe to start out as it relates to commercial versus residential business, as well as share information on research you might do on our behalf as to the idea of a business permit fee, whether it's a one-time fee or an annual fee, what other municipalities similar to Ogdensburg might be doing in that regard. So, and for those municipalities who are charging such a fee, how they go about calculating that fee. While there's still confusion on this, I think because of the octopus arms of the different arguments, I'd like to give management the prerogative to determine the topic in terms of priority of other issues this evening. So if management would prefer to hold off and maybe have a presentation during the summer to get an idea of what changes in the code council they might recommend and or council might make that could impact budget development for 2027, that might be an appropriate timeline for consideration. Any thoughts about that from council before I ask for a comment from Vaughn?
I think that would be fine. Let management do it at their own pace. It's a very complicated issue. I like the octopus analogy. You know, and honestly, for what the folks were paying, as Chief Stoll said, you know, I think what we came up with initially was a wonderful compromise. I just, again, I don't know if it's fair. I think it was it was a good offer, a good solution. But let's revisit it again. And you know, I think most municipalities simply have meters and we don't. So we're stuck in this situation. We have all these different things going on and there's your octopus. It's without meters. It's very
good. And the ones that have meters aren't necessarily equitable either.
Well,
so, you know, I mean, what's the argument?
Right. Well, the only argument is that if we had citywide meters is what I'm saying. Even if you put a meter in on commercial businesses or whatever, it's just, if either everybody's paying a meter fee or we have all this different structured levels of water fees that aren't necessarily fair. But
you know, and I don't think playing both sides of the fence or being devil's advocate, but do we invest the time to look at this now over the course of 2026 with the possibility that in 27 or 28, we're going to be looking at discussions about a major water infrastructure project that could include metering. And then we have repeat discussions all over again. You know, do we wait until that time just to stay where we are? You know, as fair as we try to make it, recognizing that there's going to be inequities in any system where flat fees are involved. Somebody's going to be subsidizing somebody else. It's just the nature of the beast of the flat fee system. And so I guess I'd like to have council reflect on the discussion tonight. And before giving management, I guess, the direction I just gave about possible presentations, whatever, let's determine if in fact we want to hear at a minimum a presentation about a citywide commercial business fee. To hear from management what the possible impact that could have on budget, particularly as it relates not only to the fee itself, but maybe uncovering businesses who may not be recording their sales tax revenue correctly where the city doesn't benefit from it, or maybe isn't collecting sales tax at all where they should, and that presentation maybe could be had, in the first quarter of 2026. And then, but again, have management invest a ton of time at this. At the end of the day, we decide, well, let's just wait to see where we go with metering 3 years from now.
So, Your Honor, I think there's two separate questions, as you said. One is the water usage, the other is home business use. And I think we have to determine a course for both of those, because right now it is based on water, in the opinion and in people's minds, their perception is it's based on water usage. It's not based on being a home business. And I think that when we look at other communities and we see what their course of action is and what their regulations are, we need to look at what their zoning is as well, because a lot of the municipalities have much more strict zoning when it comes to home business than other municipalities do. And I think maybe we are one of the ones that are not as stringent with home businesses in a pure residential area. So I think we need to not just say, what do they charge? What do they do? But is it allowed? And if it's allowed, what types of businesses are allowed to be home businesses? And that's a bigger course of work that's going to take place. But I think that comes hand in hand with what the usage are and what we do and what other municipalities do. It's not just, do they charge extra for water? It's not just, do they have a business fee? But do they allow home businesses of different capacities? And that's what we need to look at as well. So I would like to see something in the first quarter, because I think that even if we go forward with a complete water project overhaul and add meters, we're years out on that. And I think we need to address this sooner than later. Then we can always adapt then once we find out that usage, because the typical way that it was explained to me from Carrie Tuttle of DANK is when you put water meters and you let them run that whole first year and see what your average usage is before you set rates. So even if we took 2 years to put meters in, then we're still 3 years out if we follow that advice and let the water meters run for a year before we know that. So I don't think we should just let this sit for 3 years. I think we should take care of it sooner than later, but sometime in the first quarter, I would like to have that information. And I would also like to hear from some of our business owners that are paying the higher rate, or some of our business owners that are not, but they're willing to work with us and give us some advice and give us some of their impression on what they feel and how they are impacted by these items. So maybe a work session, once we have information somewhere along the way. I had mentioned to have a small task force with some invited business owners that are home business plus actual business owners to get that interpretation, but I know that wasn't something council wanted to do at that time. But I would revisit that if it's the pleasure of everyone now that we're evaluating our thoughts.
Ultimately, we could end up with a public hearing if we chose to go in another way in some other aspect. We could open it up to a public hearing, right?
But typically when we have a public hearing, though, we've pretty much determined what we're going to do. We just want to hear the comments on what we're going to do. I wanted to be more proactive on that information so that we have it as we're developing our course of action, and we can take that into account. But as long as we're looking at it, and first quarter of the year would be fine with me.
Anyone else on council? So last found, I know we've thrown a lot of different tentacles at you. Any initial reaction, or would you like the opportunity to first talk to your staff about some of the comments that have been made tonight, and then not looking for an in-depth report maybe for the next meeting, but just a follow-up report to say, we've heard some of the comments offered by council. Here are some of our initial thoughts. Here are some of our questions we'd like clarification from council on. And so that if we have further discussion on this between now and the end of the calendar year, I think, without trying to restrict anybody's ability to speak, we try to minimize discussion and debate on it again until we get into the new year and have a fresh start for council and management.
Sure, I think it's pretty fair to say that we probably need some time to unpack what's been said here today and watch the video a couple of times and try and get all the issues. This is pretty wide ranging, especially if you're looking at doing a at-home business fee and lots of research that go along with it. So I think the thing that makes the most sense is for me to get together with the management team and have a discussion, maybe get some additional points of clarification at a future meeting, and then maybe put together some kind of a game plan moving forward.
Okay, is that acceptable to council?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your patience. Any other old business this evening? That takes us to new business. Does anyone have any new business this evening?
I don't know if this is new business, but I'd just like to thank the voters who got out and voted for us, gave our basically that's under items for discussion.
Yeah.
It's usually anything with business. I know you knew just.
That's okay.
It involves resolutions.
Some action.
Gotcha.
Okay.
No problem.
But just
Learning curve.
I'll wait 2 seconds when he calls for items for discussion.
But,
I'll wait a couple seconds when he calls items for discussion.
so I'll go. New business. I know we talked about the police car. And I'd like to talk about that. I don't know if that's under items for discussion. I know we have a potential resolution coming up, so I would suggest new business. Do you want to talk about that here, or?
No, this is an issue that's more appropriate in executive session.
Okay.
For which there's one scheduled this evening.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Then I don't have any new business.
Any other new business?
Jeez.
Councilor Teeter, would you like to begin items for council?
I would, yes, I would. I just want to thank the voters for getting out there and voting, giving us the kind of a mandate to continue what we're doing, and appreciate all your votes. I look forward to serving you for the next 4 years. That's it.
Do.
I mirror that as well.
Yes.
Any other items for discussion? I do have a couple. Just a reminder to the public that the Veterans Day Remembrance Ceremony will be tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock at Crew Park. We encourage your participation and attendance. On November 16th, Sunday, November 16th, there's going to be a presentation at the Ogdensburg History Museum on Ogdensburg history of urban renewal, scheduled from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. If you are interested in attending, go to the city website to obtain a ticket to attend. And then before our next council meeting on the weekend of Friday, November 21, Saturday, November 22, the Ogdensburg Pride Beautification Commission, the City Department of Public Works, City Rec Department will be conducting in conjunction with the City Festival Special Events Committee, Lisbon Ogdensburg Lions Club, American One Realty, Holiday River Ride and Light Up the Night Parade over the course of those 2 days. So on Friday evening, the 21st, at the Biscayne Center from 6 to 8, there's going to be a Mexican night special by Dirty Gringo, wagon rides in the Biscayne Center, projects to make Christmas ornaments, projects to decorate your own sugar cookie, dress up in Christmas attire, to have pictures taken in a photo booth, opportunity to visit with Santa and Mrs. Claus and enjoy a candy cane or another treat. And then from 8 to 10, there's going to be a crazy Christmas sweater block dance, outdoor block dance, so dress appropriately. On Saturday, November 22nd, from 10 to 3, there'll be a craft fair at OFA, sponsored by Seaway Festival Special Events Committee. From 12 to 1 activities, a story hour at the Augsburg Public Library. 1 to 5, the Remington Art Museum at Kids Place will be having craft making. 6:45 to 7:15, Christmas music provided by Broadband at Dubisky. And then 6 o'clock is the Light Up the Night Parade, State Street down to Washington Street, sponsored by Lisbon and Augsburg Lions Club. And at 7:15, fireworks near the Dubisky Center, Seaway Festival Special Events Committee. So I thank the members of the Prime Beautification Commission, respective city departments, the various groups and companies, agencies, individuals who are making all this possible for a very enjoyable weekend before Thanksgiving and before the Christmas and Jewish holiday seasons. So I encourage your participation and attendance at these events on the 21st and 22nd of November. Anything else under items for discussion?
I just want to say, our rec department with our new recreation director and Shane, they've really upped the game this year. This summer, we saw a lot of events, and with this Christmas event and things like that, creating that sense of a little bit more vibrancy in the city of Augsburg is a welcome. And maybe that's a part of the opportunity cost of celebration, the celebration line. And and I think it's a good thing that we're doing all these things for our residents. And it's something I've wanted for years, and I'm very happy to see it's a breath of fresh air. Thank you, Fonda, and the department heads, and everybody else that's had a part of it. So,
Thank you, Dan. Any other items for discussion before I turn it over to City Manager Fonda Cronus for some comments about the DRI application?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I just want to inform the public and council that on Friday, this past Friday, we successfully submitted an application for a downtown revitalization initiative. That's a $10 million grant to help spur development in our downtowns. Council should be aware that we were able to identify $35 million in total projects, 29 million of which came from private or nonprofit entities, which means they weren't city proposed projects. And that's a pretty impressive number, a number we haven't been able to reach in the past for that particular area. And I have to commend the business community for coming up, stepping out and supporting this year's application. A lot of the success, however, is due to the steadfast support of City Council in supporting economic development efforts and including hiring a dedicated person for economic development who did a great job in this. I've reviewed every city DRI application, and I can say this one is the strongest by far. And we, besides having to thank the business community for coming out, there's a debt of gratitude I'd like to express for a small group of community-minded residents, and they took their time out to help Ogdensburg be a better place through this DRI application. There's no way I get every name right, so I'm not even going to start with that or mention any names, but I think those who have done it know who they are, and I just wanted to thank them for doing that. And as part of that effort, we received 273 letters of support, which is an incredible number. That's about 100 more than last year. And last year, the folks at Empire State Development said, wow, you had a lot of letters in there, and now we have 100 more than we did the previous year. And that just shows that the community is behind this effort, and that will be noticed as our application is reviewed. So I can't guarantee a win, but I can say this is our best application ever, and I'm hoping it gets us over the finish line this time. 9th time's a charm.
Thank you, Fonda. Any comments from council?
Thank you, Fonda and Tyler, for your good work, and the community as well. Many of the people that stepped up and offered their opinions and submitted their letters.
Yeah, I would just echo Fonda's comments and Councilor Powers' comments. Again, an appreciation to the management team and to the Citizens Advisory Committee who helped again this year in putting together the application that has been submitted. I think all of us were here for the workshop a couple of weeks before the deadline. And I know I was personally impressed to watch our economic developer Troy up here and conduct about a 90-minute workshop, absent any notes, gave a well-informed and a well-communicated message in what the application is about. We're seeking input from the community members who were here that evening, answering questions on the fly, I thought responsibly and with basis for any opinions he offered. And the people in the business community who've been in contact with me, and I think any of us who have had meetings with Tyler have just spoken about his energy and his willingness to be in their corner. So Tyler, thank you.
Very much.
Yes.
Any other items for discussion? So that brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you'll have 2 minutes. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 2 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
So that brings us to resolutions pertaining to executive sessions. I will introduce the first of 4. Whereas City Manager Fonda Cronis requests an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Yes. Approved.
I note for the record that Chief Kearns will join council and the city manager in that executive session. Next, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronis requests an executive session, members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. So move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Approved.
And I note for the record, Chief Stoll will be invited to join council and city manager in that executive session. Next, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronis requests an executive session, members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. And whereas New York State Open Meeting Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Approved.
And next, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronis requests an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed. Whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits city council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that city council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters which will impair the public safety if disclosed. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Tebow?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
And I note that Chief Kearns will be invited to join council and city manager in that executive session. We do not anticipate any action following any of our executive sessions this evening, so I make a motion to adjourn from executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned following the executive sessions.